can't turn myself over. The nylon soaked clean through, laid flat against my ribs like a wet quilt. And there ain't no give to it. None at all. There's no man inside that hood. I know that now. And it don't matter. 'Cause it weighs more than any living thing has a right to weigh. And it's pressing the wind clean out of me. Slow. So slow. Like it's got all night. Now hold on. Hold on a minute. Let old Silas back you up a step before we go any further down that trail. My name's Silas Vance. Some folks round the county call me Abe, and I never cared to correct 'em. I've spent the better part of my life collecting the stories the high country don't want told twice. The ones passed hand to hand at gas stations and hunting camps. Always a friend of a friend. I keep 'em in what I call the Redacted Archives. Not 'cause the government redacted anything, just 'cause the folks who lived through 'em wished afterward they could redact it from their own memory, and couldn't. Tonight's case file comes off the ridgeline, up along the spine of the old blue wall, where the trail narrows to a boot's width, and the drop falls away on both sides into laurel thickets so thick a man could holler down into it and never be found. You go up there enough, you start to feel the mountains got rules. Not posted rules, not the kind rangers nailed to a board at the trailhead. The old rules. The ones here before the trail was cut, and here long after it's grown back over. It was deep autumn when this happened, that in-between season up high, where the leaves have give up and gone brown and brittle, and the cold stopped pretending to be anything but winter's advance scout. Our hiker, I won't give you the name on account of what the family asked of me, had started that morning under a sky that looked honest enough. But weather don't roll in up there so much as it arrives all at once, like it had been standing behind a rock the whole time, waiting on you to get good and far from any place you could turn back to easy. By 3 in the morning, the rain had turned to something meaner than rain. A driving, sideways downpour, cold enough to numb a man's face in under a minute. The kind of wet that soaks in past your clothes, past your skin, and starts working on the parts of you supposed to stay dry no matter what. The headlamp beam had gone thin and gray in it, chewed up by fog, showing nothing but roots and rock and the next 6 feet of trail, over and over, like the mountain was rationing out just enough sight to keep a body walking and not 1 inch more. Exhaustion now, real exhaustion. The mountain kind. It does something to a mind. It strips a man down past his manners, past his good sense, down to something older and simpler that just wants to lie flat and stop hurting. Our hiker's legs had gone past aching into a kind of numb, distant burning, like the pain belonged to somebody else's legs a few miles off. Every step sucked into ankle-deep mud that grabbed the boot and didn't want to give it back. There's a particular kind of praying a body does at 3 in the morning in weather like that. Not asking God for anything grand, just asking for a roof. Any roof. 3 walls would do. And that's the mercy the mountain doles out, just often enough to keep a man believing in it. Out of the fog and the black timber, there it was, the low gray shape of a backcountry lean-to, hunched up off the mud on its stone footers, its shake shingle roof beaded silver with rain in the lamplight. 3-sided, open on the 4th, the way they build 'em up in that country, so a man can watch his little fire and still keep the wind at his back. To a man half drowned and hollowed out with cold, that lean-to looked like the finest lodging on God's earth. Now sit with that feeling a moment, 'cause it matters to what comes next. That relief, warm even before the fire's lit, just from the sight of a roof and 3 walls. It's powerful enough to make a man stop thinking, right when thinking would have served him best. See, a roof is a comfort, but it ain't a promise. Wood and shingle keep the rain off a body just the same whether that body's alone in there or ain't. That's the trouble with shelter up on the high ridges. It never once asks who else might be looking for the same 3 walls. Our hiker ducked in under that roof at last, dropped the pack against the back wall with the kind of groan a body only makes when it's been carrying more than it should for longer than it should, and started peeling off wet layers with fingers that had gone thick and clumsy with cold. There's an understanding among the folks who walk these ridges, older than any trail club or ranger station or laminated map at a visitor center. It ain't written on any sign, but every soul who spent a real winter storm in one of these 3-sided shanties knows it same as their own name. You never turn a body away from a shelter in a storm like that. A storm like that is a shared enemy, and shelter's a truce ground. You make room. You always make room. Our hiker knew that rule same as anybody. So when it came calling that night, there wasn't a lick of hesitation in the answer. The sleeping pad went down first, that long foam hiss against the plank floor. Then the mummy bag, unrolled and zipped up snug around a body that had by then stopped shivering, which any mountain man'll tell you is its own kind of warning, 'cause it means the body's given up fighting the cold. Boots came off. Wet socks got wrung out over the open edge of the platform into the dark below. And for a moment, just a moment, there was something almost peaceful in it. Rain drumming steady on the shake shingles. The dark pulled in close beyond the open 4th wall. The kind of quiet a body only earns after a hard enough day. That peace didn't last long. It started as a sound underneath the rain, heavier, wetter, with a rhythm the storm didn't have. Footsteps, slow sloshing ones, each landing with a sound like a boot pulled clean out of standing water and set back down in more of it. They came up the muddy approach at an unhurried pace. No stumble, no hurry. Just that same wet, heavy cadence, closing the distance. Our hiker sat up in the bag, heart going a little quick now, and called out into the dark, the way you're supposed to, the polite way, the way that lets whoever's out there know the shelter's occupied, but welcoming. And there came no answer back, just the footsteps, closing. Then, into the pale wash of the headlamp beam, it stepped up onto the wooden platform. It wore a rain poncho, oversized, the bright, hard yellow of highway safety gear. Hood cinched low over where a face ought to have been. The nylon was soaked through, dark and heavy with rainwater, hanging off its frame in slack, dripping folds. It didn't speak, didn't nod a greeting, didn't shrug a pack off its shoulders the way a body does when it's finally found rest for the night. It simply stood there a moment, dripping, at the open edge of the shelter, facing in. Our hiker felt the cold judgment of that silence and did what the unwritten rule demanded. Scooted over, slid the sleeping pad and mummy bag toward the very lip of the platform, right up to where the boards gave way to open weather, making room for a stranger the mountain's law said couldn't rightly be turned away. And the figure in yellow lay down. It came down onto the platform slow, settled onto its back, parallel and close enough that the wet hem brushed the mummy bag and left a cold, damp smear along the nylon shell. It made no sound of relief, no exhale, no shifting for comfort the way tired bodies do. It simply lay there, facing up into the dark of the shingle roof, dripping, 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 in a rhythm too even, too patient, to belong to rain running off cloth by accident. Our hiker lay back down too, turned half away out of a stranger's courtesy, and closed tired eyes, telling that quick-beating heart the same thing scared and exhausted hikers have told themselves on that ridge for 200 years. It's just a fellow traveler. It's just the storm. Go on to sleep now. That, children, was the survival error, not the sharing of the shelter. The mountain's law on that count is a good law, and I'd not have you break it. No, the error was smaller and quieter. It was the not looking, the choosing of comfort over caution, of politeness over a proper study of the thing that had just laid itself down at arm's reach in the dark. Because up on that ridge, in that kind of storm, the things that come walking don't always come for the shelter. Some of them come for what's warm inside it. The minutes that followed, our hiker would say later, in the one telling I ever got out of that shaken soul, passed slower than any minutes had before or since. The dripping didn't stop. That was the first wrongness, the kind that creeps in soft enough a body can talk itself out of noticing. Rain runs off a soaped coat for a spell and then slows, then stops, as the fabric gives up what water it's going to give. This didn't slow. Drip, 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 onto the boards, steady as a clock, long after any ordinary garment would have wrung itself dry. Then came the shifting. Not a toss, not a turn, nothing so honest as a body finding comfort. Just a slow, deliberate roll, the wet nylon hissing soft against the boards, closing that arm's reach distance by careful inches. Our hiker felt it before truly registering it. A change in air pressure along one whole side of the body. A coldness gathering there, thicker than the general cold of the night. Like a patch of dark had condensed and drawn close. By the time the mind caught up to what the body already sensed, the poncho's wet hem was pressed flush against the mummy bag shell, shoulder to hip, and it was still rolling, still closing, with that same unhurried, dreadful patience. Our hiker went rigid, breath held tight, telling the racing heart it was nothing. It was only closeness, only two cold bodies sharing warmth the way trail folk sometimes do when the alternative's frostbite. That's a lie the mind tells in the dark to buy itself another minute of not panicking. It very rarely buys much more than that. The weight came next, and it came wrong. A body rolling onto you, even a heavy one, settles the way flesh and bone settle. Gives here, presses there, fills the gaps unevenly, the way anything alive does. This was not that. The full mass of the yellow poncho came down all in a single, even sheet, flattening rather than nestling, pressing across the chest and ribs with a pressure so uniform it felt less like a person lying down and more like a great wet hand laid flat and slowly closing its grip. The air went out of the mummy bag's loft first, that little cushion of warmth a good sleeping bag holds in its fill, gone in one long exhale as the weight crushed it flat. And the air started going out of our hiker. It is a particular terror, children, the terror of a chest that will not rise. Our hiker drew a breath and felt the ribs meet resistance a few inches shy of where they ought to. Drew another, shallower. Same result. The yellow nylon did not merely rest atop the bag. It seemed to draw down into it, molding along every curve of shoulder and rib and hip the way wet cloth clings to a shape it means to keep. And with each small motion, the space for breath grew smaller. There is a word for what a trapped chest feels in that moment, and any old-timer who's had a bad fall under snowpack will tell it to you low and quiet, like they'd rather not summon the feeling by naming it. Vacuum. Not the crushing weight of stone or timber which fights you honest, but a smooth, total absence of give, as though the whole world had been reduced to one flat, wet, yellow surface that had decided your lungs don't need the room they're asking for. And under that pressing weight, the cold came with it. Not the ordinary cold of wet fabric against skin, but a cold that seemed to travel inward on purpose, seeping through the bag's fill the way water finds low ground, homing in on wherever the body still held a flicker of its own heat, and settling there, drawing it out. Our hiker's fingers, still free below the weight, had gone from cold to numb to a strange, distant tingling, and the panic circling at the edge of thought now came fully into the room, screaming behind a jaw clenched too tight to make a sound worth making. One arm, though, the one nearest the open edge, not yet pinned beneath that terrible, patient weight, still had its freedom, and on it, strapped where it always rode, sat the headlamp. It took every ounce of strength the cold hadn't stolen to work that arm free, to fumble fingers gone half numb around the little rubber switch and click it up past low, past medium, to its brightest setting, the one meant for scanning a dark trail 100 yards out, not for what it was about to be asked to do at a range of inches. Our hiker turned that beam full into the open hood of the yellow poncho, not 2 feet from where a face should have been looking back. There was no face. There was no throat beneath where a chin ought to sit, no gleam of eye, no set of teeth bare to slack in sleep. The hood held nothing at all, a hollow, glistening dark inside the yellow nylon, wet-walled and empty clean back to where the shoulders gathered, as though the garment had never once held a body, and had simply learned over some long stretch of years on that ridge how to behave as though it did. And even as the light hit that hollow, the nylon along our hiker's ribs gave one long, slow contraction, tightening around the shape trap beneath it, the way a wet glove tightens as it dries, save that this glove was tightening around living warmth and drawing it away with every careful inch it closed. Now, I won't tell you exactly how our hiker came to be free of that shelter, 'cause the family asked me kindly not to. I'll only tell you Dawn found somebody a good half-mile down ridge, soaked through and shaking and alive, and that the shelter itself, when the rangers looked on it after, held nothing out of order. No poncho, no stranger, just a scatter of boot prints in the drying mud. walking in from the trail, and none walking back out. So here's old Silas's warning, plain, the way it was given to me. When you're up on a high ridge in a hard, cold rain, and you find that gray timber roof waiting like a mercy, go on and take it. The mountain don't offer it twice in one night. But if something comes walking up out of the dark behind you, heavy-footed and dripping and silent, wearing more rain gear than any living body ever needed, look close before you make your room. Shine your light on it before you ever let it lie down beside you. Because some of what walks those ridges in a storm was never a hiker at all, caught out and needing shelter same as you. Some of it is only the shape of needing shelter, worn thin and yellow and hollow, walking the high country year after year, looking for a warm body to teach it one more time what it feels like to be full. Get on to sleep now. You've got a roof of your own tonight, and I mean to see you keep it that way.